Hi everyone, and welcome to Principles of Economics. So what is this course about? Most economists work on a certain element of the economy and ask themselves a very, very simple question. How does this work? And this is exactly the question that we want to ask as economists. How does the economy work? This is what this course is about. And there's no single best answer to this question, right? It's difficult to answer it because the economy consists of many, many moving parts. And those moving parts don't always have the same goals and intentions. And to make things even more interesting, any economy itself is a part of a giant $100 trillion enormous entity, which we call the global economy. So knowing the entire economy is certainly not feasible, but we make it our job to know more about its many, many elements and thinking about how they work and how they fit together. And this is our job as professional economists. So in this spirit, some of the questions we addressed in this course, for example, are how did we end up living the way we do? What made this generation live better or worse than the previous generation? And for example, the average person now in most countries across the globe lives much better than their predecessors. However, at the same time, we now enjoy less clean environment and live in a more unequal and perhaps politically more unstable society than a generation ago. And what led to those changes is one of the questions that we address as economists and as human beings, to be honest. Then there are millions of individuals and firms and hundreds of governments behind the process of economic growth. And we want to know how they make choices, right? And what are their guiding principles of action? Why did they make a certain decision? And what came out of it? And of course, we'll never know if each of them made the right decision for themselves, but we can think about some common trends and traits behind individual action. So how do individuals make decisions is one of the central questions in this course as well. However, taken separately, those decisions rarely make much sense, right? And people and firms do meet in markets. We want to know what guides those interactions that take place in those markets. And there are certain rules of engagement that determine the outcome from these interactions between people and between the people and firms and between private agents and governments. And those rules shape the outcomes of the interactions. And this is why we want to know how changing the rules of the game changes the outcomes from those interactions. And sometimes we want to know if the government can do something about changing the rules of the game, because sometimes changing is productive. And governments need to step in sometimes because the outcomes of the interactions are not always desirable. And sometimes government don't want to change the rules of the game because the dominant ideology of the government is such that achieving a better outcome for firms or citizens is not exactly on their agenda. Sometimes the government are very, very selfish, and the politicians that are in those governments. But our job as economists is to think about how government intervention can make things better or sometimes worse for the economy. Which brings me to the last big question we address as economists, in this course in particular. How can governments do more to improve the way people live? And the answer to this question is not only in the economics domain. We need to think how the economy interacts with the environment and what are the social consequences of those interactions. Right. So what's our approach to tackling the problems that we outlined? We use three basic principles. Now, in each week we're together, we'll identify a significant problem that society is confronting now or has been confronting in the past. And we do that to give you an immediate link between what you study here and the real world. Then we'll go on to develop a basic theory to explain what we see in the real world. We'll build connections between the real world and the theories that we study. And finally, equipped with the theory, we'll go back to the facts and ask the question, is this theory still relevant today, or it needs certain change? And there are numerous advantages of what we'll do over how economics was done at the A levels. I believe the crucial advantage is that you guys get to operate in exactly the same way that professional economists do. We see a problem, then we'll look for an explanation, and then we test our explanations by using recent data or by attacking the existing theoretical argument and building new theoretical arguments. And sometimes we offer policy solutions to help solve the problem we identified in the first place. And this is what modern teaching of the principles of economics is about. And that's what we'll do in this course. So how are we going to do it then? First, you watch the weekly videos at home before the lecture. The videos, they outline the basics of what we're doing and what we're talking about during the lecture and the rest of the week. And without those videos, you may feel lost during the live lecture, so please don't miss them. Watch them every week. That's how the week starts for you. Now, the videos come with slides that are attached to them, so you can use those slides as talking points, but not as readings, right? Not the only readings, for sure. And after you watch those videos and go over the slides, you need to do the quiz. The weekly quiz is important because it gives you about 1% of your final mark. And we included quizzes to the weekly videos to make sure that you watch the videos and got ready for the rest of the week. And please note that there is a forum sitting there for you as well. And use it if you want to get in touch with your colleagues and with me. And I can use some of the questions to start off the weekly live lecture or to allocate them to the seminar. That wraps up the week. So after each live lecture, there comes a very important part of your week, which is the weekly homework. Now, together with the weekly quiz, the weekly homework forms a significant part of your final mark in this course. So start early, don't miss the deadline, right? So according to college policies, if you miss a deadline by less than 24 hours, you get a 10 points penalty, 10 mark penalty. However, if you miss it by more than 24 hours, you get a 0 point on the assignment, on the entire assignment. So, and notice that some assignments are exempt from the 24-hour policy rule. So it's in your best interest to just submit on time. Now you'll find the deadlines for those quizzes and homeworks on Moodle. This is our learning management system. The solutions to some of those more difficult parts of the homework and some of the quiz questions are going to be given on the seminar right after the homework deadline has passed, but more than 24 hours after the homework deadline has passed. So during those seminars, you will have the chance to ask additional questions and reflect on what you have learned during the week and hopefully gear your new superpowers to understand and potentially solve important societal problems. The seminar will then close the week and you'll be able to watch the weekly videos for the following week. And that's basically the plan. So where can you find the videos, the quizzes, the homework setups, the class presentations, the textbook chapters, the seminar material, and many more applications of what we're talking about on a weekly basis? Say Financial Times articles and CNBC articles and so on. And everything will be posted in our learning management system, which is Moodle. Of course, Moodle is not Instagram. It looks a bit 20th century, to be honest, but this is the best learning management system that we've got. So get used to it. 20 or 21st century, get used to it. If you haven't done so, now is the time to also log on Moodle for the Principles course and have a look around. And when you get familiar with the Moodle environment, I strongly suggest that you go and create a student account at the CORE-ECON platform. This is where your textbook is located. Now, your textbook is free and is 100% online. And the textbook also comes conveniently as an app, which I hope is great news. And you can find the app once you register as a student on CORE-ECON.org. Now, of course, many of you are interested in how you're going to be assessed. And this is the structure of assessment in Principles. Each week you'll get around 1% from a quiz. Every weekly quiz except the first one will be marked, so don't miss the weekly quiz deadline, which is a hard deadline. Then you will also submit a weekly homework. The goal of those homeworks is to make your work a little harder than just answering a few simple questions from a quiz, and then use and apply the basic material in a new context or to a new problem. And note, however, that not all homeworks will be marked. Out of the planned 9 homeworks this term, only 2 will be picked up for marking, typically 1 from each 5 weeks of teaching. This will be the case next term as well. So you can expect a 20-25% chance that a homework you submit will be marked. And if that is marked, then you'll get a maximum of 5% of your final grade from that particular homework. And you also know you will not, of course, not know in advance whether that homework will be marked or not. And this is done so you don't have an incentive to just skip a homework or 2. You have an incentive to work and on all of these homeworks and submit all of them on a weekly basis. And there's another important reason we give you those homeworks. You'll face similar problems on the midterm and on the final exam, right? And the midterm exam will be held in late November or early December, and the final exam will be during the exam term in late May or early June. Now remember, your academic performance, your grades are and student engagement are highly inertial. If you start weak, it will be hard to reverse that trend. And if you start strong, it's going to be easier to keep that momentum going forward into your second and your third year when those 2 years are going to be crucial for your degree classification, which then matters a lot for your employment. And so I advise you as a friend and as your teacher and mentor perhaps, don't slack, start strong, keep your head down for the rest of the term, and because very soon you will need that momentum. All right, so what are the topics we'll discuss during this term? Now, first, we'll examine how the global economy looks like and what brought it here. Right? We'll dig into a brief history of the world from an economic standpoint. And second, because technological progress is so important to understand growth over long periods of time, we'll have a closer look at what determines technological progress at the firm level. Then we'll open the black box of decision making. We'll get familiar with what makes people tick, what makes them do the things that they do, and why. We'll understand their incentives and constraints and determine what's best for them. But then we'll stop analyzing the individual as a lonely animal on the edge of the forest which exchange nuts for berries with other lonely animals. Yeah, this is not how the modern economy works. It never was. So all actions that we take are happening within an environment and in which others also do the best they can. So how to determine what's best for us, given what's best for the others around us? That is that's going to be the topic number 4. And we'll also see that human interaction happens in a certain legal environment, right? So this environment shapes our incentives and imposes certain constraints on what we can do to others, how we can interact, and what others, including governments, can do to us while we do the best we can for us. These are the rules of the game, shaping human interactions. And we'll analyze how changing those rules changes the outcomes of those social interactions. In other words, changes equilibria. We'll see that the same people, identical people with the same goals and values, they will act differently and they will achieve different economic outcomes depending on how the rules of the game are structured around them. Right? And that is very, very interesting from a development standpoint. Now, in the second part of the term, we'll bring in the firm, right? Topic number 6, and we'll look at the firm from 2 vantage points mainly. First, the firm is a place where certain economic agents meet and interact. Those are the owners, the managers, and the employees. And those interactions are shaped by the constraints and incentives that each of those agents brings to the office. And the outcomes of those interactions make the difference between successful firms and failing firms. So unlike A-level economics, we'll look into the firm as no longer as a black box, right? We'll look at a firm as an active platform for human interactions between meaningful and rational economic agents, those owners, managers, and employees that we thought about. Now, of course, firms do exist primarily to make a profit, which firms generates on marketplace. And we'll look what markets are and how they shape the profits that the firms can achieve. And we'll keep asking the same question that we asked for individuals. How can a firm achieve the best that it can given the incentives and constraints the market has imposed on it? And that is going to be the second vantage point that we approach the firm from. So as you can see, the first term of this one-year module will be more about individual decision making than anything else. But the second term will give you the chance to zoom out from the individual decision making a little bit, and then we'll go for a bird's eye view on important markets such as the labor market and the credit markets. And without the proper functioning of those markets, the economy, and as we know it today, will not be able to function. So sometimes, even if market participants do the best they can, however, the markets will, of course, generate certain market failures. And we'll study those failures and we'll see sometimes why. Sometimes they lead to socially inferior outcomes. Then that discussion will open the floor for a limited but vital policy intervention in areas which, if we leave them on their own, will lower the quality of our lives, such as, for example, environmental degradation. And that's why we desperately need regulation and government intervention in those areas. So we'll close the second term with some special topics, if time allows for them, such as technological progress, inequality, and the environment. And those topics will be a primer, hopefully, for a lot larger choice of third-year options and second-year mandatory modules that you'll be going through over the course of your studies. All right, so here's where you can find me. I work in Horton Building, Office 2013. You can find the office on the ground floor, but note that I'll be able to meet you only during my office hours, which you can find on Moodle. Now, you can also send me an email anytime, but note that I'll reply to those emails during my feedback and office hours only. Exceptionally, I may reply within, say, 24 to 48 hours. If you want to know more about me, you can check my personal website. And in the spring, you'll have Dr. Vinay Nundal and Dr. Ines Villela, who will tell you how to get in touch with them separately. Last, but of course not least, a crucial part of our teaching team are the seminar leaders. We sometimes call them teaching assistants or TAs, and we'll determine the TA team very soon, and we'll post their feedback and office hours on Moodle as well. All right, thanks for watching, and have a break now, and then go watch the weekly videos for week 1. Thanks. See you soon.